Hey everybody, just a quick couple of matches from the 9.6 test server. It turns out that Wargaming put the AMX Chasseur de Chars and the STA2 in this test iteration, so I decided to actually jump on test and take a look. I've been wanting to try out the AMX Chasseur de Chars for a while, and well, here it is. And what a nice looking tank it is. This is a tier 8 French medium tank. It doesn't get preferential matchmaking, so it will face tier 10s, but it has the gun and the mobility to put up with them. Of course, the customary inscription on all my French tanks is terrible, or more adequately for me, terrible. First thing I do is head to the usual hull down position to test out its gun depression. Turns out it has a lot of gun depression. This spot's not really ideal for it because it doesn't have any armor, but the gun depression just is wonderful. I'm pretty sure the numbers have been released, so it's probably out there, but just eyeballing it, that looks like about 10 or 12 degrees at least, which is really, really good. Remembering that the best gun depression above tier 6 is the Comet, which is 12 degrees, and then above tier 7 is 10 degrees on the various American tanks, the Centurion and 42. So I decided first off to go for the STA2 here with the Panther 88. Fortunately, the Chasseur de Chars is a French tank, so it does inherit the French gun bloom issues and will not be making snapshots accurately in this tank, particularly with the changes to accuracy in 9.6, which haven't been too obnoxious from what I've noticed. Probably in the more accurate tanks you won't even notice them, but you won't want to be firing while your turret's still rotating like puppies often do. It's not going to work. But if you let it aim in for a few seconds, you're probably not going to miss at mid-range. The gun is very fast firing. It has a slightly higher rate of fire than the FCM 50-ton. It's got decent pen for a tier 8, 212 on AP, and on APCR, 259 pen. 259 pen will go through basically anything. Finish off the STA, and then decide to head around these guys into the town. Now, it is kind of skewy at the moment on test because there's a lot of squishy tier 8 mediums about. Obviously, everyone wants to test out the STA2 and the Chasseur de Chars. But this was my first match in the tank. Complete first time I'd ever touched it, and I was already in love with it. It's just phenomenally mobile, and I would not be surprised if it gets gently caressed with the nerf pad at some point, because at this stage it's just so good. It will out-accelerate the AMX light tanks up a hill. It hits its top speed almost instantly. It's just a rocket. Of course, it pays for this by not having any armor whatsoever. The only armor you do have is the gun mantlet, and that's not always going to bounce things. But mobility, I think, is quite a decent substitute for armor, particularly in a tank with a gun this good. And so I will not be complaining. Now, actually, interesting thing here. The replay bug seems to have expanded not just to make the tank rubber band around and the camera zoom out randomly, but it also seems to move your point of aim now in sniper mode. Shifting my point of aim off the tanks I was actually aiming at. But look at this speed. Holy fuck. And that's what you're going to have to watch out for. This tank is so fast that you're going to regularly end up tracking yourself. A bit slow on the reflexes there, but seriously, just wow, this thing is fucking phenomenal. You know, it's got the mobility of a light tank, in fact probably better mobility than most of the light tanks in the game, with the punch of a medium, and I'd imagine the camo of a medium to boot, because it's a pretty small tank and pretty low to the ground. I don't think this thing needs preferential matchmaking. I think if this had preferential matchmaking, it would make the Type 59 look like an angel. It's good. It's so good. Anyone who says otherwise should not be listened to. This is an absolutely fantastic tank. So without further ado, I'm going to cut this match here and skip over to a second one, which was in fact my second match in this tank. I've only played 2 matches in it. Picking up where we left off, here is my second AMX Chasseur de Chars match. We've ended up in a tier 9 game this time, actually, against an E75 and a 4502B, and an E50, which is going to be interesting. Of course, we've got the wonderful north spawn of Mountain Pass. Chasseur de Chars imbalanced. Yeah, I kind of almost would agree with that. Straight away, I take up a sniping position across here. Looks like our T49 actually has some idea of how to scout, which is nice. I wish the NA server pubbies had that much of an idea of how to scout. It's worth noting, actually, I'm going to just pause the video here. The bushes that were in this spot are gone, so your only cover and concealment is either these trees or that rock. You don't have any more bushes there, so you can easily be spotted across. Of course, this doesn't fix the simple fact that that spot is fucking OP as shit. Because as people are crossing here, they're not going to spot this guy until they're already out in the open getting shot at. And of course, the other thing is, any good player in artillery already knew that there was always going to be a scout set up there if the northern team knew what they were doing. And so you would often get arty shells or TDs blindly firing across into that spot and usually killing whoever went there. Happened to me many times. I would just go to that spot and instantly get vaporized because people just knew that somebody who comes up blue on XVM is going to go to the one broken spotting place on the entire map. So whether this is going to fix Mountain Pass, well, of course it's not. There's no way in hell that will fix it. To fix this map, you need either an equivalent spotting place on the other side and equivalent shooting position with foliage cover along there and a bit more depth to it, or you need to just completely rework both sides of the map. This isn't going to work. You can't balance it. Anyway, let's continue the video. First target, careless Indian Hunter, gets smacked for it by most of the team, and then the E50 crosses. Now, the rate of fire on this is really good. If he'd actually kept going, I would have shot again and probably penned him. However, I didn't have much gap to hit him through there. I probably could have and tracked him, but I decided not to waste a shot. I'd just deal with him later. At this point, I fired blind across, just in case he'd decided to move by now. Whether he had or not, that didn't pen him. I don't know if it actually hit him. And I waited a moment for the Indian to come back out, but it seemed he'd learned from his mistake, so I pushed on to help out the heavies and the 704 over this side of the map. But seriously though, look at this fucking top speed. Look at this fucking acceleration. This tank is nuts. This thing's a race car. I'm struggling to think of any tank in the game which is as mobile as this that isn't, you know, a medium that weighs like 10 tons or sorry, a light which weighs 10 tons or less. This is just crazy. One thing worth noting is it does get racked pretty easily, as you just saw the enemy Chasseur de Chars demonstrate, and as you're about to see me demonstrate. Well, as you did see me demonstrate, sorry. Whoops, wasn't paying attention to my own recording. I decided not to roll out here. I just pop out, take the easy kill to get his gun out of the fight, but I don't want to be taking fire for these guys. I want them to go out and tank the hits so I can roll in and use my agility to circle around these guys. Chasseur de Chars does have pretty decent hit points for a tier 8 medium, remembering most of them are around 12-1300, but it just doesn't have the armor, so it needs hit points. I focus the E50 first, he's a more difficult target, but when he dives behind a hill, the enemy Chasseur de Chars is the easy kill. E50 is occupied fighting 112. Unfortunately, I come in a bad angle, I just skipped off the side of this turret, but now he's pretty much fucked. E50 goes down easy enough. And in the blink of an eye, we are back up almost to our top speed, over hills. This thing doesn't notice hills, it just goes straight over them at full speed. Again, you can see that French aim bloom being a problem. Firing on the move is not going to be something you want to do in this tank. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen. So I let him go. There's no point chasing an AMX 13, especially in front of a 4502 and an Indian, who are both still there. I take a snapshot at the Indian, but he's behind a rock, so my carelessly auto-aimed shot goes into the rock and not him. Oh look, the 4502 snapshot on his side, and he manages to get a shot into me. Of course, there was no way I was going to bounce that. But I think the track either way, doesn't matter. I still have plenty of hit points to play with. And he is distracted fighting the IS-6. I was hoping for a shot into the back of his turret bustle there, but it just wasn't happening. He pulled in behind cover. If I had less ping, that probably would have been a good shot. You've got to work with what you have. And what I have is a nice broadside shot there as he turns to pull back and behind the rock. I snap off another cheeky side shot at him, which goes straight through, and he doesn't have a chance to fire back because this thing is so fucking fast. Holy shit! The Panther 2, not the E50, does finally get me though. But you can see how this gun, coupled with this just phenomenal mobility, really, it's a huge asset to this tank. You can pull off the just shit that no tier 8 medium has business pulling off, because you're so fast that by the time you fired your shot and the enemy wake up and start aiming at you, you're already back in cover. And you can imagine as well what implications this has on some of the more flanky maps. If you have a platoon of Chasseur de Chars, you can just blaze straight down a flank and be in the enemy's end of the map before they realise what's happened. I mean, you can imagine, for instance, Malinovka on this, doing the crossing the field thing. Sure, you might not have the armour to bounce hits once you get across, but you can get across that quickly. And this thing has 390 meters of view range, so I don't know if it's going to be affected by the future nerfs to medium tank view ranges, or if they're going to leave it alone because it's a premium or what, but 390 view range on a tier 8 with this kind of speed and acceleration and the low profile and presumably good camo, it's just absurd. You push a couple of these things across the south end of Malinovka, post them up behind the buildings, behind the little rise there and cover, and they can just perma-spot everything in that base, and then once this shit in the base is distracted or goes up the hill, they can just pop out and start dumping shot after shot into its side and rear. I mean, these guns are not bad. This is a pretty serious thing to get hit by. So I could see platoons of these just being absolutely outstanding. I'm not a fortune teller, so I can't say with any certainty if/when this will get nerfed or pulled from the store or whatever, but I'm going to go off my gut feeling, which is this tank is a bit too good, and say get one early, just in case. I think a lot of people are going to be buying them anyway because, I mean, experience on the test server shows this tank is a lot of fun. Completely apart from being good, it's a lot of fun. Being able to just whiz around dumping shots into people and they don't even realise you're there. It's fantastic. This is the kind of tank that you want as a premium, something that's a hell of a lot of fun to play, and actually does have a fighting chance. Perhaps too much of a fighting chance, but we'll see what Wargaming does with it. Hopefully it'll be left alone once it moves to the live server. They have played with premiums on test before and in fact scrapped putting them in the game, as we know from the T4485, which was another phenomenally good premium tank. The T4485 is a bit more complex though, because I think a lot of bads didn't like it. because they had trouble penning stuff and they got blown up easily because didn't really have a lot of armor, and the gun wasn't fantastic at penning things. But then you put somebody like me or somebody like, I don't know, any player who's better than me in the 4485 and load it up with APCR, and it was just fucking open season on pubbies. It was ridiculous. If you actually loaded it with gold or knew where to shoot, and knew how to not get blown up in 30 seconds, you could just put out an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage on people because it just had such high DPM. I'm not sure what the DPM value on this is. I just do know that it's more than the FCM, and I think the FCM's DPM is pretty good. So it seems like it's going to be kind of a similar case of very, very highly mobile tank, except this one doesn't have any trouble with penning stuff, whereas the T4485 did. So watch this space. I have heard through the grapevine, I don't read FTR very often, but apparently Silent Stalker said this is a bad tank or something. Well, I'm going to say Silent Stalker is a bad player who thinks he's really good because he runs a blog, but isn't actually really good. If you have any ability to not get vaporized the second you're spotted, and pick your targets, this is a good tank. There is nothing bad about this tank. You don't need armor to have a good tank at all. Mobility is better than armor in any case. That's why I play medium tanks. So I would seriously ignore anybody telling you this isn't good. This thing is fucking fantastic, and I guarantee you the day that it hits the live server, you'll be seeing a lot of the top players buying them and playing them in platoons because it's just that kind of tank. Certainly I will, although I wouldn't classify myself as a top player for obvious reasons. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to be interrupting my upload queue to get this one out in a hurry, so it's still actually relevant, and hopefully gets onto YouTube before the before the Chasseur de Chars gets onto the live server. And incidentally, I've just recently uploaded some FCM videos, so you can compare them. How convenient. But until the next one, thank you very much for watching. I wish you the best of luck in the field, and I'll see you next time.